Hey friend, in this video, we're going to do a full mix walkthrough of the song He Is Alive by Cornerstone Collective Worship. They're out of Davenport, Florida. This is their first single that they ever had. It was an honor to work on it with them, and they're going to be coming out with some new songs too, so I'm going to link the song down below. Go subscribe, go follow them. They're a great group of people just going after the heart of the Lord, and so I'm excited, guys, to show you through this mix. There were some funny things about the recording that I have addressed with them since, and so they're going back and fixing some of those things, and I'll show you a couple of small workarounds that I had, but for the most part, this turned out to be a really awesome song, and you can really tell the Lord is working in that church and doing something really, really cool. So before we dig into it, I just want to let you know there's a free mixing cheat sheet down below. EQ and compression starting points, absolutely free for you to pick up. And then before we also dive in, you probably may be wondering, who the heck am I? Well, my name's Lucas. I own a company called Produce Perform. And really this whole thing is just about equipping you to have better worship mixes, whether it be recording or maybe this will help your live stream, or maybe this can even help some of your live sound. And I'm probably going to dig into some of those videos a little bit later. If you guys are interested in maybe some help with live sound and some live streaming, just let me know, and maybe I can do some videos on that as well. But yeah, I just care about the impact of worship music in your local community, because I noticed that whenever I was in my community here in Illinois, that there was so much fantastic worship music happening, and it just wasn't being produced well. It wasn't even being released well. No one was hearing it. And it's like the Lord is speaking through these people, and it's like, how can we get that out to the world? And so that's what I'm here to help you do, is help you create these very professional mixes and masters and recordings, so that what's happening in your region, in your area, can be released to the world, because God is speaking something through all of us, and it's special, and it needs to be out there because people need to hear it, right? So let's dig into it. So in this mix, here, let me just give you the lay of the land real quick. So here in this mix, what we're going to do is we're going to go left to right across the mixing window here, and so basically right here is my mix bus, and then I've got my 3 separate buses and that's kind of how I like to split things up for my mixes. I've got an all instruments bus, an all vocals bus, and then my drums bus. And then we'll kind of just go from there, from drums, percussion, bass, guitars, keys, synths, flute. I just want to highlight there's a flute here. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then we're going to hit the lead vocal, which I had to do something really funny with this because they overdubbed the lead vocal, so I'll have to show you guys what I did there. And then some BGVs and the vocal effects, and then we have the room mic ending. So let's just dig into it. So on the mix bus, if you guys have not seen, I actually did a full video, a full walkthrough of my mix bus, going through every little thing. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I will just kind of go through what I have on this mix bus. So first we've got Gullfoss. If you guys have not used this, it is basically it's literally working constantly to get rid of resonances, and you can control the amount. So we have the tame set at 20 and the recover set at 20 and the brighten set at 1. The brighten gets changed depending on the type of mix I'm doing and kind of the reference that the artist gives me. If the mix that they give me is a little bit brighter, then I'll boost that a little bit. But if it's more of like a Bethel style mix, I'll actually keep that brighten pretty low, because Bethel's mixes are not very bright compared to like Upper Room or like Elevation or something like that. So, and then after that, I put on the Slate Digital VTM, the virtual tape machine, just to give it some nice saturation. I love the low end saturation that this in particular provides for the kick and the bass. And then we are hitting it with a stereo widener, the Ozone Imager, and we're just doing some widening on this top end here, like from 10K to 20K, and then a little bit from this 3 to 6K, or 3 to 10K, or 2.5 to 10K, something like that. And then barely a little bit in this mid-range, and then we're actually pulling some of the lows, like if there's any lows here, from 0 to about 100, we're pulling those out. I don't really care to have a lot of low end stereo. It makes your mix sound really muddy. And so this is kind of a standard thing I will keep on my mix bus often. And if you guys have noticed, I actually don't have an EQ. I usually have a little bit of an EQ on here. I usually use a Pultec. Just decided to take it off of this mix. Didn't really make sense. So let's just, I'm going to give you guys a taste of the mix real quick. So I'm just going to hit, and we're going to listen to chorus 3 here. Kind of like one of the bigger choruses of the song. Cool. So sounding huge at the end. It's such a cool song. I'm very impressed by these guys. And so let's dig into these buses. So we got the all instruments bus, which is basically everything but the drums. So even the percussion I like to put in the all instruments bus. And so let me find. We'll just go. We're probably gonna stick on chorus 3 because that's where most stuff is hitting. There, and actually, I think my sub drop, here it is. Sub drop got moved. So we're just going to move this back here. I think I was trying to line it up with the kick, the last few things I was doing. And so these two also need to go here. Okay, cool. Now we're a little bit more organized. So here is the all instruments bus. And all we're doing on this all instruments bus is just hitting it with some bus compression, and I'm looking for about 3 to 4 dB of gain reduction. So nothing crazy there. And then we have our all vocals bus. Again, hitting about 3 to 4 dB of gain reduction. And here's something that I do that I really want to point out is I put my room mics in my vocal bus because ultimately I'm viewing the room mics as like a choral, choir, gang vocal type of sound. Like that's what I'm trying to get out of the room mics. So I like to put them in with the vocals because ideally that's what it is. So here is the all vocals bus soloed.
Worthy, worthy, King forever, and glory, glory, Lord my Savior. So we'll sing it out.
And I do want to point out on this song, I did not actually route my my vocal effects, my delays and reverbs into the vocal bus. I sometimes do, sometimes don't. It depends on the mix. Sometimes it sounds good. So I'm actually just going to solo save all these so that we can hear that.
Worthy, worthy, King forever, and glory, glory, Lord my Savior.
So, yep, sounding great. Trying to get that big, like, worship sound. Anyways, drums here. There's I want to point out something. When I pulled this up and I was reviewing it, there's something weird going on with the toms, and I haven't figured it out. So if the toms sound funny, I think Trigger is doing something funny, and I haven't figured it out. But we're gonna go through it anyway. We may fix it on the fly here. But this mix is already done and out. So, and the link is down below if you guys want to listen to the whole song. All right, so there's the drum mix. Now on the drum bus, I do a lot more because you know, we want our drums to sound good. We want them to go super well. We want to sound good. So on the drum bus, we're hitting it with a Pro Q3, and I just noticed, I think after I really EQ'd everything, there was still some type of boxiness happening around, you know, 370, 400 area. So we just pulled a little bit, like 1.5 dB out. And then it looks like there's a tiny lift here of like barely anything. It's probably not even noticeable. And then we're hitting with the API 2500. I love the 2500. It's pretty aggressive sounding, and so that really helps get your drums to kind of push out of the mix. And we're doing about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction. You can hit this compressor really hard and it's going to sound good, but what I like to do is do it in a sidechain aspect, which we'll get to over here when we get to my drum crush channels. Next, we're hitting it with spiff, and so spiff is really just tightening up that low end and making sure that low end's really pumping through. So you guys can see it's really pushing out that low end for us. So you can see it's really helping the actual low end of the kick and the snare just cut through. That's what I like to use spiff for. It's a really cool plugin. Pretty much everything from them is really cool. And then we're hitting with the BSA, the Black Salt Audio Clipper. This is a really fun plugin to use just to add more volume to your drums without losing any headroom. That's what I feel like I get into a pretty dense mix sometimes, and I kind of start losing the drums a little bit, but I don't want to take away from what's happening with the synths and the guitars and everything. So this clippers are very cool to do that. I don't know why I'm stuttering, but like here, if I bypass this and turn it on, see, it just adds like a push. But it's not really adding any actual headroom volume. It's wild. And then if you guys saw my last video, and this is why you're here, then you know that I love saturation, and I'm hitting this with the saturation of the Magma, the BB tubes. And it's just another way to add flavor to the whole drum kit. And then let's move on to the kick bus. So I like to have micro buses for all of my drums to almost treat them like a single instrument. In that way, like you can see that all of my toms here, I'll just open these up. These are just transient shapers. All of my tom EQ is actually happening on here, and it's not very much. So like you don't need to EQ the heck out of everything all the time. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you don't. So on the kick here, we have the SSL 4KE, and we're just taking out some, looks like 500, and we're boosting some 2K just so it punches through the mix a little bit. And then after that, we are hitting it with the Hollywood from the Slate Digital Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack, and then also the Air EQ Earth. Just a touch of both, just to add more saturation to get that kick just to push out. Do that. So you hear that it's bypassed, and so it just adds like a touch of like just a little bit more aggression. So on the kick, we'll do the kick in first. So on the kick in, we're using silencer to get all the cymbals and the snare bleed out. And then we're hitting it with an EQ, doing some pretty funny EQ there. And then on the kick trigger, I ended up going with Luke Hendrickson's kick from his template on this mix. So you guys see me use a lot of the Frankie kick from Austin Davis collection, and this song I decided I wanted that kind of the soft plushy kick for this song, and it really worked out. And then after that, we're just doing a bit of EQ, pulling out some of these low mids, and adding a bit of top end just for it to snap out of the mix a little bit. So, and then together, and then in the mix. So you guys are maybe listening to that in solo and be like, it doesn't sound very good, but then in the mix it sounds great. So that's what matters. That's what matters, is the mix. Okay, moving on to the snare bus. We're doing a little bit of EQ here, actually a lot of EQ. So we are pulling out some 200 actually, which is very weird for me to do. And then we're also pulling out some 500, do that almost every mix. And we're pulling out some 4K, and then we're adding, it's funny, we're pulling out 4K here, but then we're adding in 1.5. I don't know what I was doing. I was chasing, right? I was chasing the sound. I was like, man, this isn't sounding right. And then finally got it. And then we are then moving on to the virtual mix rack. And if you can see, these first two modules are bypassed. They're not on. And then we're using the Hollywood again to get some saturation. The Hollywood, I just like it. The saturation for it just sounds good on drums almost every time. Don't know what else to say about it. It just sounds good. And then we have the split EQ. This is if I'm losing some crack of the snare, this is what I like to do. I like to grab the split EQ, grab the transient node on the highest band there, and it looks like I'm at 7.1. And this really is just adding like a very subtle smack across like the top end of the snare to really let it push through the mix, because sometimes it gets lost. And so here is the snare. And we'll take these inserts off. So you guys see, I took a lot of low end out, which is very different from some of my other mixes, but it just fit. To me, it fit in the mix better. It vibed with the mix better. So let's start with the snare top here. So funny thing about this snare is let me bypass this. It sounds like it was in like a room. I don't know how else to explain that, but let's let you guys listen to it. Like, there's no reverb going on right now. Like, that's just like what it sounded like. I don't know why. So I put on this the D reverb plugin from Waves, and this is for dialogue or singing or whatever. But it seemed to take away enough for me to make it usable. And then we added in the sample. So this is the main sample channel here. And this, we are using the Austin Davis collection 6.5 Queen Bee medium. That sample. And so play that. Do a little bit of EQ here. And then you guys will see that I have a separate trigger channel, and this is for ghost notes and for builds. And so why I do this is because I like to control the trigger a little bit better. And this is a live performance, so it's not like the drummer's performance was exactly perfect. So what I like to do is you grab the same exact sample. So basically you just duplicate the whole channel. And then you come down to the curves and you change the range. I like to go from like 20 to 100, 20, for me, 20 to 77 seem to work. And basically it's never going to trigger the biggest snare hit. No matter what goes through here, it's always going to trigger the lower velocity of the low to medium hits. And so it's going to act more dynamically sounding to the drummer's performance. So let me just solo these two so you guys can hear it. Oh, well, it didn't apparently wanted to change settings on me here. Cool, there we go. Okay, so you guys can hear, like, it actually sounds like he's hitting the snare whenever he's building in there, like more naturally, like because obviously he's not going full hits there. He's just bouncing the stick off the snare drum, so it's more of like a lighter build. Okay, well, see, I'm telling you, Trigger has been changing its settings on me. I don't know if it's doing this to anybody else, but it's been annoying the heck out of me. Okay, so this is not becoming a great example, but you guys get what the idea of it. I don't know what's going on with trigger. Okay, moving on to toms. So, like I said, I think it's the same thing. I'm having trigger keeps changing its settings on me or something. Maybe I just need to reinstall it. But these are the. Let's find a tom fill here. And see, look, like trigger 2 is not. It's not. No, this one's not triggering for some reason. There we go. Okay. Let me try to find something better. Does he do a tom beat anywhere? Okay, we're just going to go through it. But here, let's go on the bus here. Doing some EQ. We're doing some top end boost just to let those toms cut through. Taking out some 500, of course, and then we're boosting around 100 just to get the beefiness out of the toms. And then we're hitting it with smack attack. The thing with with most toms, and especially if you're using samples, is the sustain is just too long. Like, it's not realistic. It sounds fake. And so, but even after all my samples, I'm using a transient shaper from Slate Digital to pull out even more sustain, and that's happening on each one. And then we're using silencer on the actual tom mics themselves. So it kind of gets rid of a lot of the snare sound. One thing I noticed about this mix was it was really hard to get those gates locked in. And looking back, I probably should have just chopped it all up rather than trying to let the gates do its thing. So lesson learned there. Mix still turned out great. That's what matters. So we are using, looks like the Pearl series toms. I don't even remember what sample pack that's from, but this is the tom sample from that collection. And so together, so they sound different, but they're both melding very well, which is good.
The morning breaks, the tomb.
And so same thing with tom 2 and tom 3. We're just using silencer, and then the same with the trigger. Just using the Pearl series drums. And let's move on to cymbals here. So we're doing some simple EQ here, adding a little bit of top end shimmer to those cymbals, and then taking out a lot of 4K. I always find some weird resonances, especially if it's in a drum cage in this area here, like 1.5 to like 6 or something like that. There's just some weird stuff going on, and then always pulling out some mids, some woofy mids. And then I really don't care to have any sub frequencies in my overheads. I don't want to affect the kick sound at all that way. And if you guys, I actually have done a full video on how I do some of these cymbal processing. So if you guys want to check that out, there is a full video on the channel for that. So, and then next we have Soothe, and this is basically just doing a lot of incremental like resonances. And again, this really helps with what I was just talking about, was like that 1.5 to 6K, 8K, where you get like a whistly sound if it's coming from like a drum cage. And so let me just go to this chorus here. So see, it's just taking these little resonances and pulling them down for you whenever they get a little too overbearing. Soothe 2 is a lifesaver most of the time. Okay, I'm not doing anything on this apparently. Okay, not doing. And then we're using the stereo imager from the SSL Fusion, and just doing a little bit of width just to make the drum set feel bigger, wider. So here I'll bypass it real quick. Put it on. And what that does is it almost takes anything that was like in the mono section of the stereo overheads and lets the individual mics really pump through. So really nice. Okay, next we're doing the sidechain compression here. So I like to have two sidechain compression modules, and so or two sidechain compression buses here. They both sound very different, but they both work well together. So first one is the API 2500, as you guys know, using it on the actual drum bus, but this one just sounds so good. And we're doing like 12, 15 dBs of gain reduction. Like just hitting it hard. And so this is about -11. And then on the next one, we're doing the FG Stress here. And so just listen to the difference between this one and then the Drum Crush one. So I'm not sending as much here, but it has a much cleaner like resonance and sound to it, because I'm really just sending the samples to these. But these two together, like so much aggression and so much punch for the drums to actually come out in the mix. And so let's just do this in the full mix here, and I'm just going to pull these up a little bit. You see, just kind of understand the vibe of that I'm going for within the mix. And then this bus here is, well, it's supposed to be named Drum Crush, but I named it Kirsch, apparently. This is just so I could automate the actual Drum Crush channels, because I noticed in the pre-chorus and chorus 1, I didn't like what was happening with it. It was just too overbearing, I guess, with there were a few kicks in there, and it looks like a little bit of rock tom, and I didn't like the sound of it there, and so it got pulled down a few dB. And then we have a gated verb here for the snare, which I didn't use. It's all the way down. Never mind. Moving on. Tom verb. And this is literally just to add some space to these toms. We're at like literally 1 second of decay. And it's really just to put the toms in a space, make them sound a little bit bigger. And then we have an overall drum verb here that I'm only using for the snare and the toms. And this is a Valhalla plate, and we have it set on Chrome. Pre-delay is quite high, and then at 2.3 seconds of decay. All right, moving on to the percussion. So let me give you an idea of the percussion here. We'll just hit play. Sweet. So you guys heard that build up into the chorus 3, and you heard this sub. So this is just an 808, just a kind of a subby 808 that I have in some sample pack that I found. And so that is literally just to make sure that big final chorus coming out of the bridge just sounds huge. And then if you guys have seen my the video about how to get a big sounding worship chorus, which is like one of my first videos on the channel. You guys have seen me do this already, but I do this quite often where I will grab a verby clap and like a verby tambourine, and I will match it up with the big snare hits that are happening in like the final chorus and maybe the final bridge, depending on how the song is going. And so this is these are those two. And then so you can see that they line up with the big snare hits on this chorus here. It just adds a sense of bigness to the snare without you having to. You can do this without adding volume to the snare, and it's actually what it's going to do is add more depth to your mix and make the mix sound bigger, like it's like you're at the climax of a mix and it is just exploding now. So very, very cool. So on these, I just am taking out a little bit of low end and then hitting it with the Valhalla plate at 3 seconds at 15%. And then also I forgot to do on percussion. I took a little bit of high end out to just to take a little bit out of that mix. Sometimes it gets a little overbearing, especially the tambourines and the shakers, some of that stuff, and even some of the reverse stuff. So it looks like I didn't even use that track. These two tracks aren't even used. Hide. Okay. So this track here I used for like a swell and like a kind of a ramp up here at the end. So we'll just listen to this. So that's just going into the interlude there, the first interlude where the full band comes in.
Jesus reigns, he is alive.
Super subtle there. This isn't as subtle. This is really, again, I want to add tension so that the last chorus is, it's resolving, and it's that big chorus. And so it actually ramps right into this sub here. So you guys can listen to this. And there you go. Boom. And then I love shakers and stuff. I love adding shakers. I love adding shakers to the second verse. It just, I don't know what it is about adding a shaker to the second verse, but it just, even if it's subtle, like it doesn't need to be very loud. It adds a rhythmic, nice feel, and adds like a nice shuffle. I think that's the right word. A nice shuffle to the song, and it's so that in a sense, it's like the drummer doesn't have to work as hard. He can really stay in like more of like a backbeat formation, and let the shaker or any other percussion kind of take that syncopation lead.
The morning breaks, the tomb is bare, the voice of angels.
And then I love adding tambourine on the bigger parts. So tambourine, you can see, is like literally, it's just on the choruses. And this is the tambourine sample I used. Just super, super, just simple. And it's not even very loud. Here I can show you where it comes in here. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to bass guitar. So for the bass, they had a lot of parts where they had him in like the whole time, and they obviously did an overdub. And I just chopped it up. So whenever you are mixing something like this, be conscious of two things. Be conscious of like, what does the mix need in this moment, and then also if you can communicate with the video guy. I don't know if they had video for this actually, but communicate with the video guy and just tell him, hey, I cut the bass out in these parts. So if you're going to show the bass, so like don't show the bass player if he's playing at these parts. But I cut it out because I just didn't need it. Like it just seemed like it was too much for the mix. And there's whenever you're in this position and you're creating something like this, it's kind of up to you to almost help with the arrangement. Obviously, you need to get the permission of the writer or the person who you are mixing for, the church, whatever, and whatnot. But like they gave me full control, so I cut the bass out quite a bit here. But you want it to add impact. You don't want it to take away from the song. Because coming in with low end too early or taking out the low end in certain spots can add so much impact to the song. Anyways. Bass guitar, here is the sound here. Bring it up. So pretty aggressive. All right, so we're doing some funny EQ here, taking out some very much the top end, but getting like this finger noise here at 900. pulling out some weird mid-range here at 160, 240, and then hitting it with Saturn for some drive, a little bit of like saturation. This warm tape saturation sounds really good. And then we are hitting it with the Pro MB. And basically this is controlling the low end. This is compressing the low end of the bass only. And so basically it's going to whenever it is it's going to react to the low end of the bass. Basically whenever it gets too much, it's going to pull it down, and then when it's not quite there, it's going to pull it up. So it's going to keep the low end very consistent. You see when he kind of hit those notes a little bit stronger. Yeah, there you go. So it's a really good way to keep your bass, especially the low end of your bass, really consistent. And then we have a second Pro MB. And this is probably really confusing, but it is sidechain to the kick. So basically every time the kick hits, it's going to drop just this low end here. So the kick gets this space in the mix. It's very subtle. You can't even really hear it necessarily in the bass guitar, but it's like the kick just gets that presence that it needs in the low end for that split second every time because it's just a transient, right? It's just a single transient every time it hits. And then if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, you guys know that it's hard for me to go on a mix without putting parallax on the bass guitar. This is one of the coolest plugins I've ever seen for bass guitar from Neural DSP. Basically, it just adds a really nice drive to it and really nice aggression. So here, let me just bypass this and then listen to this bass. So it sounds like a good bass, right? But then we turn this on, just aggression pops out of the mix. Ugh, gritty, nice. Sounds great. And I heard someone ask me the other day that they were asking me if there was like a free version of something like Parallax where they can add some aggression, some distortion. And yes, there is a cool plugin called I think it's TSE Bod. Yeah. So this plugin is super cool. It's literally, I think it's free actually. Pretty sure it's free. Last time I checked, it was free. So it's gonna take some tweaking, and so we're just gonna do this real quick because I want to show you guys. What's unfortunate is they don't have like presets with this. I wish they did. Anyways, let's give this a listen. That's not bad. It's not bad at all, actually. Add a little bit more drive, maybe. Let's go here. So the overdrive part is not as I don't know how to say it, natural sounding as I would like it, but this sounds pretty freaking good. Anyways, try that out if you guys don't have Parallax or don't want to buy it, which I get. Plugins are getting expensive. They have been expensive. Anyways, let's go to the acoustic guitars. So they overdubbed the acoustic guitars as well, because as you guys know, DI acoustic sucks. it's literally just terrible. And so with the acoustics, I did the same thing on both, even though they were completely different mics. I like to just emulate. I like to leave the differences. And so basically these two are separate takes, and so they're panned left and right. But one of them is like literally on the actual mic itself. And then this one is kind of in like a roomy sound. But here's the thing, in the mix, they actually sound pretty good together. And so all I did with these was we hit it with some EQ, took some high end out, and that's about it. Took some low end out. And we are hitting it with the Klanghelm compressor, which I don't even know if it's doing any compression, to be honest. Oh, it is doing that one. Yeah, they're both getting compressed. So if you guys have not used this, the Klanghelm sounds really great on guitars. I don't know what's going on behind the surface there, but it sounds awesome. And another creative liberty that I took was there was acoustics throughout the entire song, like and ideally it's good to have acoustic on early, but I just didn't care for it until this first chorus.
Worthy, King forever. Glory, glory, Lord my Savior. So we'll sing it out, shout it out.
So yeah, I mean, just feel free to mute stuff. Like I even muted it in the beginning of the bridge here. Not until they started building, and then even in the down chorus, it was just I wanted to get rid of it. Okay, moving on to electrics. So you guys can see there's nothing on the individual channels. I pretty much did everything on the bus here, and basically just some simple EQ. We're doing a little bit of a boost at 1.7, a little bit of a cut at 4800, and a little bit of a boost at 138 to add some weight to the guitars. Taking out the low lows. Really don't need anything under, most of the time, anything under 100 when it comes to guitars, especially worship guitars. And then, again, if you guys have been with me for any amount of time, you guys know I love BX Shred Spread. I'm literally just using it for the shred knob here, and I'm just gonna we'll solo this, and I'm just gonna show you guys what this sounds like. Let's go to chorus 3. Take it off. Like, it just adds like this low mid saturation thing. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it just sounds great on every mix that I do. And then we're using the Klanghelm again, which I don't even know if it's compressing. I don't particularly love to compress electric guitars. They're already pretty compressed. Like, if you guys look at the wave signal on these electrics, or on most electrics, especially distorted electrics, they're already going through overdrives and stuff. Like, there's not a lot of variability here. It doesn't really need compression. As you can see, but the difference between the acoustic, there's lots of up and downs. But with the electrics, man, just don't overcompress them. Like, it's so easy to overcompress. You use compression when you don't need to. Next, we have up the Valhalla Vintage Verb. It is less than a second decay. We're on the Concert Hall 1970s mix, and I just wanted to add these guitars into a little bit bigger of a space. So I'll just bypass this. It should be pretty subtle. Yeah, very, very subtle. What I listen for when I'm throwing this on is it putting all the guitars, like making them feel like they're playing together as if they all are playing live, even though I think all these are overdubs. That's what I'm going for with that Vintage Verb, and then hitting it with the SSL Fusion again. This doing a little bit more width, so we're at 3.6 dB on the width knob here, and so we can bypass this. So really just pushing those guitars out. I like to push the guitars and the synths and all that stuff out so that the vocals can shine through a little bit. So that's the electrics there. And then we have the keys bus here. And so there were two different keys that they sent me. Let me go find them. Okay. So there is this intro keys here, which is what really starts the song. It's kind of like the main line, catchy line for the keys. It happens a couple times throughout the song. So let me just solo that. So it sounds like a big grand piano in like a big room. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't remember if it was a grand. I don't think it was. But what I didn't care for was how roomy it was. And so using the split EQ transient node again, but all across like the whole thing. And I just boosted it. Looks like I boosted it about 3.6 dB just to add a touch more attack to the sound and kind of. I didn't want to use like a plugin that gets rid of the room sound because it starts to get grainy that way. So this way I just wanted to add some more of that transient, more of the smack. And this is super subtle, but for me, and it really wasn't even for the intro here. The intro is fine because there's not much going on here. But it was for the other parts, especially for this interlude part where I really wanted it to stick out.
His love.
And so here we can solo this and so you guys can hear the difference here. So it's pretty subtle. It's just adding a little bit more of attack, so it squeezes out of the mix. Really wanted to make this very beefy sounding, so boosted some 200, took out some very much of that top end, and then we have a different piano here that is a much more modern sounding worship keyboard. So I don't know what they use for it, but it sounds like a cool piano. And just doing a little bit of EQ, taking some low end out, taking these mids out, kind of where the other one is, because they do come in together near the end here, and then boosting a little bit of 1.5. I take out probably a lot of 1K and 1.5K, a lot out of the vocals, and lots of like little things where it just sounds nasally. But on keyboards and guitars, you can really boost that sometimes to really fill that gap in the mix. And so here are both of the pianos together. Honestly, kind of epic sounding right there. It's kind of cool. And then they are going into a keys bus where we're pulling out some more 300, pulling out a bunch of 244. Looks like I kind of had a redundancy there because I was adding some 200 there. Anyways, it happens. And then hitting it with the 1176. I love the 1176 on keyboards. It sounds phenomenal. Even though I just tried out a new compressor on keyboard and I loved it. I'll have to talk about that on another video. Because it's on a mix I'm working on right now that I can't release, or I can't, show you guys. But stay tuned for that because I was blown away. I was like, is this the best keyboard compression plugin I've ever used? Maybe. And I don't even think that's what it's for. And then hitting it with the stereo image. Again, the Fusion stereo image, and this one's not as much width, just 1.8 dB, and then F6. Is this doing anything? Oh yeah. So I think whenever both keyboards come in, there's just so much buildup in this low mid because they're both kind of competing. But I also didn't want to take it away from both, and so I just wanted to kind of tame that a little bit. And so here is all of the bus inserts off. So pretty muddy. And yeah, cleaned up quite a bit just with all of those, and then made it a little bit wider with the stereo image. Okay, synth bus, hitting with the 4KE. It looks like we're just taking some low end out. That's all there. And then the C6, this is what I use to tame the overall synth sound, because synths can get really overwhelming really quickly, especially whenever they start to build up in a mix. And so I just use this to kind of tame the all of the synths, because it's like they start to push like quite a bit sometimes, and instead of me having to do a bunch of automation just to like get it to sit right in the mix, C6 does like half the work for me. And then hitting it with the SSL Fusion again with a bunch of width. We're at 3.6 dB of width because I like them to sound big. Now on this mix, there wasn't actually any width going on. So, or any synths going on. So, really, there's just this pad here. It's just like a drone pad, which I literally cut out. I had it in the intro, and then I have it in the bridge. And then the rest of it I cut out because it was just muddying up the mix. Now, what's funny about this is they have apparently one of the best flute players. I'm gonna say in the world. I don't know if that's actually true, but a very good flute player. And he played live at the service, but there's a lot of bleed and funny notes and stuff like that, and so they did an overdub, and so I just treated it like it was a kind of a lead synth type of vibe, and so it's really just kind of in here, kind of doing its thing, really just kind of adding a texture, almost like a call and response type of vibe. So I'm going to boost it here just so you guys can hear it. He really shines. I have it kind of low here in this part, but you guys can see the automation here. I kind of have it after this part because I muted this one. I just kind of let it soar for most of the time. I killed this one, I think, because I wanted that keys part to shine through. But this is just more like a synth texture. So I'm just gonna bring it up so you guys can hear it.
The voice of angels fills the air. Oh, behold, he loves, lift up your...
And so I'm just gonna solo it now and show you guys what I did. So I didn't really do any crazy processing. I really wanted it to make it sound more synthy instead of like just a straight flute, because it didn't fit the vibe of the rest of the song or the instrumentation. And so I threw RC20. If you guys have never used RC20 Retro Color, it is such a cool random plugin. Like, this is the most random stuff you could throw on, but sometimes it gives you a vibe. So here's without it. Sounds like a flute with reverb. Okay, and then throw it on. So it just kind of gives it like it just kind of gives it like a synth, like wavy sound to it. I didn't want to do too much because I still wanted to keep the, the sound of a flute, and I wanted it squeezed in the mix so bad because it's so cool. So pretty cool. It's just a cool texture to have throughout the mix, and very different from what I am normally used to whenever I'm mixing. So next up is we're gonna hit the lead vocal here, and so going to show you guys all of the vocals together real quick. Let me go to this chorus here.
Worthy, King forever.
So all the vocals are overdubbed, but I did keep this one section. But let's go through the overdubbed vocal first. And so I don't know what room they sang in, but there was a lot of reverb in the room. And so using the D-Reverb Pro from Waves just to get rid of that roomy sound, and then the Pro Q3, we're using it to pull out some of these low mids. They used an RE320, and so there's just some low mid content that comes along with mics like that just doesn't sound appealing. And so pulled some of that out, and then hitting it with RVox just to do some 2 or 3 dBs of gain reduction here.
Glory, Lord, my Savior, so we'll sing it out.
And then hitting it with the CLA 76. You guys know this is like my favorite vocal compressor here.
Glory, Lord, my Savior, so we'll sing it out.
and then hitting it with the C6 just to kind of make it sound consistent. So if he is backing off or coming closer or whatever, it's really just, you know, solidifying that.
Lord, my Savior, so we'll sing it out.
And then hitting it with the de-esser, and then there were some S's that kept happening even after the de-esser that I didn't like, but I didn't want to change the tone of his vocals. So Soothe 2 to the rescue. There's a vocal de-esser preset in here, and I just tweaked it. I moved a couple of things around here just to get it to sit right, and it took care of it for me.
Worthy, worthy, King forever.
It's crazy how subtle Soothe is. And then if you guys saw my last video, Escalator, just to add some push out into the mix, it's just a saturator. Okay, so you guys see that there's another lead vocal channel. This is his actual live take from Easter, and there were a couple times where he said things in the middle of the song, and it's very prominent in the room mics, and so I was like, I need to keep that. So right here,
Father, sing it out.
he said, all right, let's sing it out. And then the other spot,
Worthy, sing it, church.
and so this one I had to get really creative on. I had to keep his take here and fade it out as he's singing the end of Worthy here to get it to fit right in with the room mics, because at this part the room mics are really loud because it's a down chorus. So I had to really I probably tweaked this for about 20 minutes until it felt right.
Worthy, sing it, church.
And then on his mic here, not a ton of changes. I didn't do it as much processing. The only major change that I did is I added fresh air because it really needed some top. It was whatever mic they were using live, it just did not have the amount of top end as the 320 had. So I really had to boost the top end to get it to sound how I wanted it to sound. And so here I can kind of show you here.
He is worthy, sing it, church.
And then a really cool trick here is I made it sound like he was backing off. He backed off the mic here, and then he got kind of closer as they ramped back up into the chorus with like the full band. So you can see this automation curve here to really add that live feel as he like stepped back and just kind of let the congregation sing.
He is worthy, sing it, church. And glory, glory, Lord, my Savior, so we'll sing it out, shout it out. Oh.
So pretty cool. Had to do some funny editing there just to get it to kind of mold well and fit with the room mics. And then we have a bunch of BGV overdubs. Just give those a listen real quick. So I just treated these as if they were kind of in the room. Like I wanted them to sound like they were in the room. So you hear a lot of reverb. Just hitting them with the waves tune, just making sure they're all in tune. And then hitting it with the SSL 4KE. We're really just taking out some low end 1.8. Just taking out low end right now. A lot of low end. We're high passing up to 300. And this is on all of them. And then we're taking out some of that top end too, just so it doesn't get in the way of the lead vocal. And then each of them have its own Valhalla plate because I wanted it to feel like they were in the room. I didn't really necessarily want to do a sidechain. I didn't want to do a send. You know, I wanted to be a part of that microphone. And then there is a BGV bus here, and we're hitting it with Soothe 2. Just to make sure there's no abundance of resonances happening on the BGV bus. And then again hitting it with, and I added some top end back in. I was kind of chasing it a little bit. I think I was like trying to figure out where should the top end be coming in at so I can add the energy. So I was kind of messing around with it. Sometimes you kind of go around in a circle, especially when it comes to EQ and multi-band compression. But yeah, so that's cool. And then on the lead vocal, I did a sidechain compressor here, and I used the FG Stress, so we can solo that real quick. So just being super compressed, but it's really helping it be pushed out into the mix. And so if I can just mute that right here. Just adds a little bit of an extra push, and it keeps me from over compressing the actual vocal itself. So in the verses and the down bridges and stuff like that, it can sound very natural whenever, and then I can tweak this to the amount that I want for that. All right, so for all the vocal effects, I'm not going to go through these because I've done a whole video on them. They haven't really changed. So if you guys want to check that out, I have a whole video on my vocal effects. Now let's hit the room. So the room mics are okay. They're okay sounding. I had to do a lot of EQ. So took all this low end out, and literally you just see me chasing weird resonances and everything. And then even with spiff, I am chasing, making sure that the drum resonances, the hits and stuff are being ducked as much as possible. And then even with Soothe 2 here, we're doing even more resonant reduction, lots of that going on. And then we're hitting it with the Valhalla plate again, because you guys obviously can probably tell I freaking love this plugin. And then on the last thing in the chain, we are hitting it with the width knob, and I have it cranked all the way up. So let's just give these a listen real quick, and I'm going to show you guys when I bypass this. Is funny. So I don't know if you guys are noticing, like you're probably like, wow, that sounds really thin and not great. Or maybe you're like, what are you talking about? No, that actually sounds so much better because I'm thinking in the vibe of the mix. And so if I, let's just do this. So I'll throw it in the mix bypassed and just listen to how muddy and kind of cluttered the mix gets. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the low end, like the low mids, were just messy. Like it was a cluttered mess. And so doing this processing really helped clarify where all that low mid content really is and is sitting, and even maybe you need to get rid of it all. So, and then last, I added these two like fake crowd noises, and so we're just I'll solo these. These are not very loud at all. These aren't really meant to be heard, they're meant to be felt, if that makes sense. So this is like going into the bridge build whenever they really start building to go into that last chorus, and I just wanted to add some like energy to the build where people are like celebrating, yelling, and clapping. Okay, and then it's like you guys probably won't even hear this.
Death is done, all creation testify. Oh, the Lord, oh, the cross, oh, the blood of Jesus Christ. So
I know you guys probably didn't even hear that, and it's the same for these two. You might hear this one a little bit more. And so this is going into that last chorus where they're like coming out of the down chorus, and then they start building, and then they drop into that final part of the chorus to end the song.
Lord, my Savior, so we'll sing it out, shout it out, oh, let our creation
yeah, guys, that is it. And I know you guys maybe you're looking at the master here. Oh wait, no, that's not it. That's not it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Last thing is my live album verb. I really wanted this to be like a really like spacey mix. Spacey is not the right word, but I wanted it to sound big. So I have this live album verb that I use: the Valhalla room, large room, 3 seconds, and it's basically on everything at some sort of capacity. And then I'm just hitting this EQ because, again, with the low mids and the lows and even some of the high highs, don't really need that for this album, for the verb, because the room, you almost want to emulate another room mic in a sense. And so I'm just going to solo this so you guys can hear what that sounds like. And if I take this EQ off, like you already know if I left that EQ off, it would muddy up the entire mix. And so I'm just going to mute this right here, and you guys can feel like you lose a lot of the bigness of the mix. Boom. Using an entire verb on the entire song to emulate a room is like game changer for these live worship mixes. And then if you guys see on my master, there's a Pro L2, but it's not doing anything. Literally no gain. Okay, just wanted to clarify. There's no hidden processing anywhere. And then these two are just for referencing and monitoring. So guys, that is the mix, man. A little bit different than what I sometimes do, but you just have to adapt to the mix and what the mix needs. So this video is helpful. I can do more of these. Just let me know. And comment down below what other videos you guys want me to do. Don't forget about the mixing cheat sheet, absolutely free, my gift to you. And I'll see you guys on the next video.